All right, we're back again with Dr. Shafali's The Parenting Map. You've got the cover, I don't, the parenting map.
Well, it's backwards anyway.
We are on page 155,
Step
11. Activate your third eye. When I first read that, I thought, oh, my Cyclops.
I know, I was like, namaste.
The first two eyes that we've talked about in this book is your inner child and your imposter ego. Okay. And
Good
so
job.
the third eye, so we've talked about, so the inner child, the imposter ego that kind of comes out in your fighter, fixer, fleer, freezer, or feigner.
Good job.
Look at that. So this third eye then is your insightful self. So once we start to look at like, who are we and how we can start working towards overcoming some of the other two eyes, we can continue to make progress in our own parenting journey. Okay. So, imagine this. Imagine you had a parent who accepted you just as you were. You would have never needed to create all those false selves to gain validation, would you? Well, when we parent in our egos, our children greatly suffer. Okay. So it's a challenge for all of us to just continue to be in touch with our own emotions. It's not something that is very normalized in society. I think it's definitely made some progress over the course of, getting some notoriety with, pretty affluent, or I should say, popular people on social media talking about their mental health and taking breaks from things, right? Or talking about how the support and help that they need has been beneficial for them.
I think that just as a side note, like I am so grateful that like pop culture and athletes and stuff like that have been able to be vulnerable enough to share those types of things. Because it does help a measure of the population to be like, oh, okay. Like, I mean, for some, I think they're like, I'm going to be like Britney Spears and I'm going to have this diagnosis and it's going to be cool like Britney. But I mean, there's some of that. But I think there's also validation that, life is hard for everybody. Money doesn't solve any problems.
No.
Well, it does solve a few problems, but.
Right. But it doesn't fix the
Emotional
emotional and mental, challenges that we all have. And that I think, for me, I feel like we're all of us are just trying to do our best every day. And, sometimes the best looks different on any given day. And if today, if my best is staying in my pajamas and,
Netflix and chill.
Maybe, if that's all I have the emotional capacity to do today, maybe getting my kids to school, then that's got to be my best for today. And I can't beat myself up about it. So there's something in me that needs to be nurtured that day. And I've got to be okay with it. Now, the warning that we kind of always give parents is that when we start to see habits or patterns, right? Like patterns in our own behavior or patterns in our kids' behavior, that's when you probably should pay a little bit more attention. So the things that we talk about in this book are not, we understand that this is not just a checklist of, oh, if we do this, everything's going to be great. So when we talk about recognizing our emotions, naming them, working on some of these things as a way to better connect and be more conscious in our parenting with our children. It's a journey. Some days are going to be a lot easier and better than others, but
it's an uphill journey.
It's an uphill journey.
It's not an easy walk through the
park. The hill of Sisyphus.
Sisyphus.
So anyway,
no, Sisyphus.
There you go.
The rock.
Pushing the rock. It's the rock man. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
So today we're talking about insightful self, right? And trying to be the all nurturing person that we want to be. So your third eye is your insightful self. Now, you've heard about these five egos that we've been talking about throughout the whole book. So when we try to recognize that we are trying to change some of those inner conversations, those inner words. What am I trying to say?
Inner dialogue.
Inner dialogue. I'm having a
It's okay.
rough word day.
Yeah.
When we try to change
the
our inner
word together.
dialogue, there's a couple suggestions. Become aware of the dynamic between your two eyes, between your inner child and your imposter ego. So this is on the bottom of page 158. Understanding that your ego responds to the fears of the inner child is key.
And the
Okay.
ego's only job is in any way possible to protect the inner child.
Mhm.
And it does its job well.
Yep. So it looks different for each of the ego masks. So the fighter, right? So the dynamic between your two eyes, the fighter, if your inner child says, I'm scared, the fighter says, that's wrong. And I'm going to control them to make it right. Right? Like, I'm going to fix this, or excuse me, I'm going to fight this. I'm going to seek for control. The fixer says, I'm scared, but it might come out as I'm wrong and I will do what I can to stop them from abandoning me. Okay. The feigner says I'm scared, but it comes out as I cannot be wrong and I will do what I can to make it look like I'm right.
To look like I'm right.
That's the one that really has a focus on attention.
Appear, yeah.
Yep, and how things appear. The freezer, if they're feeling scared, it might come out as I'm wrong and I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to be paralyzed. I'm just going to freeze and quit and shut down. Where the fleer might have a feeling of I'm not worthy. I don't feel, I'm sad. I'm not worthy. But it comes out as I don't care about being wrong or right. I just don't care at all. And they avoid the issue. So once you're aware of those, okay, being aware that your ego is always reacting to the fear of your inner child, that's a powerful step on the healing journey. Then number 2 is to create a pause through body awareness of those 5 A's. Okay.
And the reason why it's important to focus on that is because all of these fear responses create a sense of urgency. And so we react very quickly to it. And so this is a conscious step to like, I'm going to pause.
Slow the roll.
Right.
You got it.
And then we can learn in that paused moment and make a different choice. Like my son, like this is how I'm used to responding. So I'm going to pause and I'm going to think before I respond.
And I think that's the hardest part, right? It's because that's what we try to teach our kids is that why are you so impulsive, right? Why do you fly off the handle? Why don't you stop and think? Stop and think. Well, that's exactly what this stage is about, to try to attune yourself into your emotions, right? Are you feeling anxiety? Are you feeling anger? What can you do to be in the present moment? So this is where a lot of mindfulness, some people meditate, some people just take deep breaths or use some other sensory tools. I think an easy one for me is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? What are 5 things I can see in this moment? Okay, I can see this brochure, I can see this folder, then 4 things I can hear, 3 things I can taste or touch, 2 things I can smell, and 1 thing I can taste. And you just try to reframe yourself in the moment and give yourself a minute to kind of slow down, pause and check yourself at a deeper level, and then honor what those feelings are.
Yes.
And taking care of them without activating your imposter ego.
And I think that's really, because what we're doing, how can I honor what I'm feeling and take care of these feelings, right? That's us taking care of our inner child, the things that maybe we didn't pay attention to or weren't able to pay attention to in the past. So we're not fixing it. We're not shaming it. We're not blaming it. We're not saying you got no reason to be scared right now. We're honoring the feeling. Okay, I'm going to sit with you here in this space and kind of take it in.
And are there other supports that can help you do that, right? Like, I feel like there are times where I'll call my husband and I'll be like, okay, I need you to say A, B, and C to me to talk me off the ledge, right? I'm getting emotional. I need to be centered. And he's my sounding board for that. Like
Mhm.
he's the person who says, no, but you don't need to worry about that. You're, just, it's not going to happen, whatever he says.
Right.
Um, so if that's a tool that you feel like you need is to call,
Phone a
someone,
friend.
phone a friend, right? Your lifeline, like use those people too. And so until you can start doing that yourself, because
Mhm.
this is a hard part of the journey. I even wrote so hard
Yeah.
right there.
Well, and it might be whatever your self-care measures that's helpful to you. It might be talking to a friend, it might be taking a warm bath, it might be going for a walk, it might be let's do a session of yoga. Let's am I hungry? Do I need to eat something so that I can like approach this in a more rational way? And
Right.
it just slows down that reaction time.
Right.
So we can
Right.
be mindful of it.
Okay, so step one, be aware of the dynamic between your two eyes, your inner child and your imposter ego. Step two, create a pause through your body. Be aware of your emotions. And then step three, activate your insightful self.
Okay, that
This
makes
is
me
your-
think of the Wonder Twins.
Your third
Are you
eye.
old enough to know the Wonder Twins?
Wonder Twins,
powers
power
activate.
activate.
Form of an eagle.
Activate your insightful self. And this is where the voice of the insightful self is a calm, soothing, and loving one that listens to the fears of the inner child and soothes it. Okay. Goes on page 162. She tells a story about a client named Linda, who really just, we could say she's overreacting to her
Mhm.
triggers, but really when you dig deeper into it and you look into what she's experiencing and how she was treating herself through that, when she was coached into these steps, she was able to make a bigger awareness. She was able to have kind of like this light, like this aha moment, right? Like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, this is totally going to change now how I
Yep.
handle these things moving forward. So some of the strategies that Dr. Shafali says she gave Linda in those moments of panic. Okay.
Mhm.
Some
I love these.
really great phrases. So if you're following along and you have a pen, I would write some of these down.
The first one is I'm going to be okay no matter what decisions my child makes. And I talk to my parents a lot about that. Like when you're going when baby's crying and you're up all night, like it's okay. I'm gonna be okay. This is hard, but I'm gonna be okay. I can do this, right? So I'm gonna be okay no matter what decisions my child makes or what they say or what they do.
Now, I think I'm going to say something about that one because that means a lot more to me now than it did before. And I don't know if it's because my kids are little. Now, obviously, we always, this, we always trump safety first out of everything.
100%.
So we're not talking about safe decisions here, right? We're talking about like decisions that we can help our children navigate on their own, even if they're not the decision we want them to make, right? So it might be a risky decision. If they're gonna go to a party or they're even driving or, going to a friend's house or whatever those decisions are. Notice it says, I'm gonna be okay no matter what my child decides. It doesn't say my child's gonna be okay. So based on your family values and the level of risk you're allowing yourself to take in parenting, you have got to always be okay with that. A therapist that we worked with through some of our most troubling parenting times said to us, whatever decision you make, you have to be okay with. And so even though my husband and I didn't agree on the decision at the time, we had to work towards an agreement that we could both live with the outcome. Right. And sometimes whatever it was. And I'm telling you, those were some of the most difficult conversations we had and some of the most difficult challenges. And I have to tell you that I conceded to some of those because I wouldn't have been that forgiving in some of those situations, but I did because my husband couldn't live with anything else at the moment, So when we think about these, that those are decisions, and that's why I like that phrase. I'm going to be okay no matter what my child decides, because that's the person that we have to nurture first.
And that whether that is your 3-year-old little boy decides to pee in the corner of the living room, or
Not funny.
or drive while drinking, or like it's forever. Like
Yes.
you've got to be okay with you knowing that your child is their own person, and what are you going to prioritize in the relationship.
The second one is, I don't need my child to make me feel good enough.
You got to read that one twice or 3 times.
I don't need my child to make me feel good enough. Okay, now you at home, say it with me. Say it with me. I don't need my child to make me feel good enough.
It's not their job.
No, but wow, look at how powerful that can be for that inner ego and that inner child, right? Like, I mean, there's a lot of us, I think, you guys, who struggle with feeling good enough and not even just like, I think I don't know. I think it's hard to say that we feel we put so much of our identity as parents on our children. And then, that's just how it comes to be. Like so much of who we are is based on our children and what they do and how they succeed. But really, you are all, if you don't hear anything out of this book study today, but listen to that and say that you don't need your child to make you feel good enough. And the next one,
I am a good enough parent no matter what my child chooses to do with her life or his life or their life. I'm a good enough parent no matter how my child turns out. I'm a good enough parent.
Yeah. Because how they turn out is, I mean, they're their
ultimately
own person.
Their decision.
They're their own person. I know, right? And now that I have 3 kids like that are kind of in the same, like young adult exploring after high school options, and they're all like right. I mean, they're back to back to back. So I don't know if you guys know that about my kids, but they're all taking a different path and they've all come to their path differently, but that was not my goal for them. But I keep telling myself when they're 35, they're going to be just great. Like, what? Why am I stressing out? When they're 35, they're going to be fine. So
they're all doing their thing right now too.
Yes.
Like, it's like, why do we don't get to measure?
No. And do they have joy? Right? Like,
and that's up to them.
That is up to them. And you know what? If you struggle with it, now obviously we're not bringing into consideration other diagnoses or other mental health challenges, which we know can very highly influence a lot of outcomes, right? But those are still some things that you need to consider. And the last one,
I am a worthy person even if my child makes unconventional choices. So I just want to paint a picture for you. So let's pretend that your family is conservative Christian going to a wedding. Okay. Whole family's invited because bride and groom are crazy like that. Whole family's invited. Everybody's dressed up in their Sunday best. And one child comes, your child with the purple hair and the nose ring, and doesn't want to dress up. Like, what do you do? Like, what do you do in that situation? And what this is saying is, I'm a worthy person even if my child makes unconventional choices. Is like, do you feel comfortable in that, honey? Yes. Okay. Because most people are going to be looking kind of like us, but if you're comfortable with that, okay. And then you go and you hold your head up and you don't talk to everybody and say, sorry about my kid, they're going through, their rebellious stage, and we don't really understand it, but we're not making excuses for them. Yep. We're honoring who they are.
Right.
And can we get to a place where that's okay? I'm not saying that ever happened to anybody, but it could.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And I mean, I think there's a point where all of us feel like that, right? The initial, and then we get, if we can, we try to get over that hump where
Mhm.
that doesn't affect us as much as our child's comfort level in
Yes.
expressing themselves and who they are, right?
Yes.
Like I remember my kids were younger and we went to church and there was a girl there who was we remember growing up with her. She was a little bit older than my kids, but I think they had her for a Sunday school teacher. But she was in college. And she came back at Christmas time and she had half shaved her head, the other half was purple. She had piercings all over and she was dressed kind of goth, with the fishnet stockings. And we were at church, winter break, Christmas-ish area.
Mhm.
And I remember thinking at first, oh my gosh, like how embarrassing for that mom. And then my
Mhm.
second thought was, that girl is beautiful.
Mhm.
She is beautiful. Like, and for her to be able to express herself like that. And I thought, wow, then I'm like, well, I'm sure everybody at church doesn't think she's beautiful. And then I find out after talking to her mom, she's going to school for art and creativity and something like that, right?
Yes.
Like it all fit, the whole picture fit. This is what she was made to do. And how wonderful that was and how positive it was for her.
And yet,
So,
if you were only listening to your feigner ego,
oh yeah,
you'd be like, you can't come with us to the wedding, or now
yes,
none of us can come.
yes.
None of us can go
If
now.
you're
You
looking
ruined it
like
for
that,
everybody.
yes.
Yeah.
But again, I'm a worthy person, even if my child makes unconventional choices.
Yes.
And how empowering for the child to see that their parents, the two people they love more than anything in the world, supports them and is proud of them.
You go. You do you.
So you got it. All right. So the fighter can change that inner dialogue and can say, you are worthy. You do not need control. Try to understand your kid. Where are they coming from? The fixer says you are loved. You don't need to fix your kid. Attune to them. And if you wonder about attunement versus attachment, look up attunement. It's a little bit different. It's more having an emotional connection to your kid. What about the feigner?
Feigner, you are seen. You don't need to impress anyone. Connect to your child. Okay. And I love that because it's putting the relationship with the child above any other relationship that really is going to be fleeting. I mean, oftentimes it's just strangers.
Mm-hmm.
Who cares what they think?
Mm-hmm.
The freezer, you are valid. You don't need to be afraid. You won't be rejected. Okay. And the fleer, you don't need to escape. You are important. Try to stay here.
Mm-hmm. So putting this into practice, in the book, she's got a little template. I don't know if you can see it. Sorry.
You got
It's
it.
a little table like that. Across the top, the three columns are inner child, imposter ego, and now insightful self. And then she's got the 5 egos along the column on the left. So the fighter, fixer, feigner, freezer, and fleer. And really what she does is she wants you to try to fill that in when you feel like you're a fighter and things are going against you and you're reacting emotionally. Your inner child is probably saying something like, I'm a failure, I can't lose at this. And the imposter ego says, I'll fix you. But your insightful self should say, you are scared, you feel out of control, and there is nothing to control. Okay. So this is a opportunity to put this into practice by trying to figure out that if you are a fixer, how is it that your inner child is responding? What is your imposter ego reacting to? And what would that insightful self, the nurturing, caring, compassionate self say to you in that moment?
It's kind of a name it and tame it sort of deal
Mhm.
too.
Mhm.
Like identify I'm having these feelings and then challenge those thoughts. Like,
Mhm.
is that really that's not what's happening. That's you feeling insecure, vulnerable about something, and you're trying to protect that part. But right here, you don't need that protection.
Right.
You can sit with this and you can move through it.
Right. So in order to break the loop, okay, we've got to, step 1 is to break that loop. That's just step 1. Step 1, break the loop. Try to change the way, use your insightful self thoughts. Step 2 is to look within yourself, to break your toxic pattern as a parent, connect to the inner child that activates your ego, listen to it, right? If you're thinking, I'm scared, I'm worried, I'm out of control, you can feel without being in control. Soothing yourself from within, understanding yourself, being mindful of those feelings. And then step 4, attuning to the real child inside of you. Calm your inner child, turn to your real child to soothe yourself. This is your pathway for connection. And then you will end up finding that you have the ultimate parent-child connection. Okay. Dr. Shefali talks about this whole process is called reparenting ourselves. Not only do we need to get rid of all the old voices within us, but implant new ones, literally learning a whole new language on how to talk to ourselves. And again, this doesn't mean that we were all parented wrong, right? This is never an opportunity it's never an intention to insult your parents and how you were parented. But I think more we learn about brain health and brain science and emotions, and the more research is being done on approaches to help people, be as healthy in their communication and their relationships as possible. I mean, why not, right? Who doesn't want the best for their kids?
Well, and I think there's a really healthy aspect of like not looking back or looking to your inner child to see who you can blame for that or shame or who's at fault and why am I this way. Although there are times when you need to do that, but most of the time you can like this is just what I'm dealing with. These are the wounds and the tools that I have, and so I need to make the best of it, and this is how we do that.
Yeah. So with that's a lot. We'll give you a little brief introduction into stage 3, and then we'll pick up stage 3 next. But that stage 3 starts on page 173, from conflict to connection. Okay, so I know that a lot of us struggle with feeling connected, especially as your kids get into that tween and teen years, and just this idea that, well, if they're expressing their independence, they don't want us around, then we're going to give them what they want, right? But that couldn't be farther from the truth, that these are really pivotal stages in staying connected. So as you think about conflict and how you handle it, that's where we're going.
Yeah. I like, she says on 174, the entire goal of conscious parenting is to accept your kids for who they are, period. And I might have shared in another video, but when my oldest child was in the tweeny kind of areas, there was a lot of conflict between her and all of us actually in the family. And and she was making choices that had negative consequences on people, and in my own with my therapist and in trying to figure out where do we go from here, getting to know her for who she was and what she valued. I made a plan to go on a 2-day trip with her. We went to the cities. And my only goal was just to follow her around and follow her lead. So, we went to the Mall of America, and, she chose where we were going to eat. She chose what stores we were going to go into. And I just observed. I observed what she commented on, what she touched, what she felt motivated to buy, and how she was interpreting the world as it came at her. And that was and I had no agenda, right? I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to have this time to sit her down and talk to her and teach her and let her know that she needs to reevaluate how she's going to do this. And then she's going to come home a fixed kid. And I really, it was kind of all about her, but so that I could learn more about her. And it really was a good launching place for this, like honoring who she was. And that requires us entering into their world. Not saying if you want to have a relationship with me, you got to come to my space, but I would like to honor you. I would like to know you better. What part of your life would you like to share with me?
And this totally hit with me when it says at the bottom of 174, we cannot simply just be
Mhm,
with things.
mhm.
We feel the need to do something. If we see a stunning sunset, we have to take a picture. If we see a rose, we want to pluck it or smell it. But being present to the essence of things, our own feelings or our conflicts with another, is something we are not conditioned to do. Instead, we're conditioned to react to things.
Mhm.
So, how would that look if instead of reacting to things that our kids do, we just are there in the moment with them through that? Huh. Wow, this is really hard, right? Like,
Mhm.
oh, this sounds like it's tough. This sounds like a
Mhm.
problem,
Yep.
right? Like, I wonder how that's going to work itself out. Like, wow, that really, because we are. And I love, there's an old quote that says, we are human beings, not human doings,
Yes.
and
Should talk to my mom about that.
I know, right? I know. Where's that come from? So,
The middle 175, like if you want, like we've talked about, what does having a successful child look like
mhm.
that kind of thing. And she says children who receive unconditional acceptance from their parents experience an indelible worthiness. Indelible means that it's like ironclad, like unacceptable, unconditional acceptance from your parents
Mhm.
communicates you are worthy. You're worthy of attention. You're worthy of love. You're worthy of value and appreciation. And but she goes on later on the page, like children with self-worth are still going to make mistakes. They're still going to have challenges. They're not exempt from life or emotions. But you can going through difficult things, which we're all going to do. We're all going to face challenges and obstacles, and we're going to make mistakes and fall on our faces sometimes. But when you've got that indelible worthiness, that self-worth,
Mhm.
we can weather those things
Mhm. Mhm.
much better.
You bet. And the next steps on this journey really then get into that connecting with your kid, like
Mhm.
some really concrete and intentional, conscious strategies for connecting and communicating with your kid, and really some of the practical parenting things. So next step is 12, learn kid psych. It starts on page 177 and it goes all the way to 210. So it's a big one. We are going to take that one on in its own episode. So next time, step 12, kid psych.
That's a chunky one.
Yeah, so if you want
Chunky
to
one.
read ahead or if you want to look forward to the next one, please do.
Be well.
Take good care. We'll talk to you all soon. Thanks. Bye.